Hello everyone, my name is Miguel Infante. I'm here on the regarding with my team Connie and Joseph on the negative side, responding to the affirmative on the MGC for the College for All Act. Now I'm here to begin on saying I want to remind you all for the negative that we have a good strong belief, and we put out earlier saying that this plan is not going to work. This plan isn't going to work because number one, the downfall of downsides, and number two, COVID-19 has taken a big hit for everyone else involved. And today, in today's society, if we want College for All Act, well, that's going to be an issue because overall we have a big issue with COVID-19, and this would be a negative downfall for students and for teachers and everyone else involved. I want to remind you all what I mentioned earlier in the previous debate. People nowadays, we have to understand that COVID-19 has taken a big hit. COVID-19 has basically shut down everything for schools. And I want to also remind you that if we were able to do this for a College for All Act for everybody, this would limit the potential and factors for the teachers and the people that are teaching the students. For example, like I mentioned earlier, the example is this: if we have teachers teaching, and if they go to Harvard, if they're teachers at Harvard, or etc., the fact of the matter is the schools and the people that and the students that are involved in those classes, they're not going to be able to get the higher education that they need and desire and deserve, because of the fact of the matter is the lower education. And if everyone is accepted to Harvard, if everyone is accepted to that college or accepted in that school, and if it's a free college for all entire act thing, the fact of the matter is the lower the funding will be for that school. Because if you think about it, the lower the funding is for the school, the lower resources that they have. Let alone not saying Harvard will have, let alone that resource, but I'm saying any school. If we require everyone, like if every college for all act, the fact of the matter is the resources would be low, the teachers would get lower pay, and that would decrease, and that would increase as a default in taxes. Let alone, where is this money coming from? Now, I want to respond to the MG on her side, saying that the taxes and the taxpayers are our side of it, my side of it, our side of it, was saying that the taxpayers, this doesn't relate to taxpayers. Well, I want to ask you this. You mentioned earlier saying that, well, the taxpayers and people in property tax are not paying for this. Well, you said they're not paying for this, which I understand. I understand your point. I understand your recollection and your standing point on that. But the main issue that I'm trying to get through my head is, if they're not paying for this, then who's paying for this? If property tax isn't paying for it, people that are paying taxes and property tax for the school and paying property tax for it, then where is this coming from? If you said earlier in your debate, saying that in your video, that it's not property tax, but if it's not property tax, but you said it's a plan, there's a plan coming out, and the plan that's coming out, you have to sign. Now, who is signing that? Is that under the board of the school education, or is that under the president, under the government, or who is signing that to pay it off? Because at the end of the day, the money has to come from somewhere. The money has to come from somewhere regardless. Because if we're not having property tax, then this money has to come from somewhere. It's not going to come out of the gutter to just come out of nowhere. It's got to come from somewhere. So if you have the president or the government or state board, whoever in that region is paying for this, then someone's got to pay for it and sign it off. And then again, you got to think about who and how long this is going to take to sign off. Because if you don't have the right resources to sign off, then where is this coming from? Because let alone if it's not property tax, that I don't see a good recollection on how this is going to pay off. Second thing, you mentioned earlier that our statement on the percentage of people that are international students for college, that it would not benefit them to go, or it would not benefit them to not be in it at all, or not benefit them to their full potential. You said that that percentage of college students in the international state was 15%, that could not do school or could not do what we wanted them to do. It affected the most. Well, if you think about it, right? If you think about it, let's say they're not international students. Let's say they're every student. Let's say they're every student, right? Let's say they're every student. Every student has to come up with a percentage, and every student has to fight their way into college. Now, I want to also remind you that if they were not international students, then where is this going to fall under? Because internationally or not, I want to also remind you that you also made a statement earlier saying that the lack of motivation for these students for not graduating, when I mentioned earlier the 20.6% on college graduation rates and the low percentage rates of graduation, that is under the lack of motivation. If it's under the lack of motivation, I want to go back to your argument on the international students. Let's say for example, right? Let's say for example, the international students were that 20.6% that could not graduate or that did not graduate. Is that within a lack of? Is that within under a lack of motivation, a lack of desire, or is that with under what they cannot and what they cannot and cannot handle? Because if you're saying if it's a lack of motivation and a lack of desire, then where is it? Then where? Then is it just not international students? Is it just not international students? Because if it's a lack of motivation, I could say, for example, that I did not graduate. I could say, for example, I didn't graduate college, and there was a lack of motivation, or I just couldn't do it because I couldn't pay it off, or I couldn't do it because of this. And if we're promising, if you're promising that if you're promising a free college for all act, and everyone would graduate college, will that still be the case? Will that still be the case? Because at the end of the day, not everyone is going to graduate college. Not everyone is going to graduate college. People are going to drop out regardless. Even if it's a lack of motivation, it's not just a lack of motivation. They have other priorities. They have other priorities. So if we're promising the idea of free college for all, and the idea and the ideology of saying that college for all, this free statement, it would benefit and hype up the graduation rates. But then what about the other percentage of rates of people that have to either drop out to help their mother, help the grandparents, or whatever, do to that, and they have to do that and take on that role, and they can't finish college? It's not a lack of motivation or a lack of responsibility. It's a lack of how they prioritize their time. It's not lack of motivation. I could say, for example, that I dropped out of college and I didn't go back because I had helped my family. It's how they want to perceive themselves. So that 20.6% isn't lack of motivation. It's not lack of motivation at all. It's more or less where they're at. But the graduation rates are low, and if we're expecting this free college for all act to fix that, that's not going to fix it at all. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.